What I find important about reading about the pulps, even the stuff from the 1800s to the early 1900s, say maybe all the way up even to like the 1930s, is you get to see some of the building blocks that other people have used in what is like big recognizable IPs nowadays. It's just some of them have been pulled forward in time in terms of technology and other things that are available and whatnot. But there's just something about going back and looking at those old books where it's just like it's a vital, stepping stone and a vital block of understanding how, say, some of the spaghetti westerns happened or some of the favorite pulp sci-fi setups happened. You just gotta be able to examine all this stuff and being able to read it is a definite thing that needs to happen because even now, like stuff that I was taught in school isn't even touched upon anymore because it comes from the idea of like, oh, but that was a dead old white guy, so we don't need to read that. It's like the only thing from my school days that I really did not remotely get into in terms of reading is Tale of Two Cities. It's like the only thing that I read the Cliff Notes version on because it's just everything about it just did not engage me whatsoever. Shakespeare engaged me more than Tale of Two Cities did, even though Tale of Two Cities is considered one of the wider known classics. You're not always going to click with everything that's out there, and that's fine. But it should be available to read, in an unaltered state. It shouldn't be just swept away and sanitized just because people's personal preferences and other things have changed over the years. It's just important to understand where we came from, to understand or even see where we might be going. I think that's a good thing in all sorts of books and everything else. You got to see where you're going. That's all. And this Mother's Day was rather interesting. Like had a margarita. It's called a cream brulee, and it had some sort of vanilla vodka in it with a Bailey's cream, Irish cream, and some sort of F word I cannot pronounce, but apparently it was some sort of like sweetener liquor. Um, and they topped it off with a bit of cinnamon. I'm like, ooh, but it went down very smoothly, and ooh boy, was that vodka potent. It's like that's some good stuff. Mm-hmm. Yes. But the biggest thing with like a lot of leading IPs, and I say leading just in terms of the fact that like, yes, if you mention them, people usually at least understand the gist of it. But yeah, stuff like Star Wars and Harry Potter and everything else, they are merchandised to the point where it's they make cash cows out of half the people involved with it. I would say if you're an old time collector, then search flea markets and things. The older made stuff is better than whatever Disney's deciding to turn out nowadays. For one, from the looks of it, it's more durable. It's not as cheaply made, so that's the reason why if you happen to find collectors that have old stuff, you might be paying a bit more of a pretty penny for it. But it's kind of like what I was thinking about the other day. These IPs didn't start in a vacuum. Lucas and the other people, even in his generation, they were looking back at pulps that influenced them when they were younger. So I'm assuming, based on Lucas's age, he was probably looking at stuff from the 1880s till about the 1930s or 1940s, maybe a little bit later. Some 50s and 60s stuff possibly. But the probably the more influential stuff was probably from the early 1900s. I'd probably have to look into it some more to see, but from what like a cursory like look over, it looks like stuff like Flash Gordon and a lot of the old time spaghetti westerns really affected the makeup of Star Wars in and of itself. So that's just one Florida woman's take on it. And I guess the big teal deer of this is if you're even no matter what kind of thing you're writing, I would say try to go back as far as you can in any kind of oral telling, or even pulp roots, or even literature, right? Just even just regular literature, and see what came before, just to see how, like, okay, they built it this way, so what kind of tools do I want to add from that toolbox into the one I currently possess, and whether or not you want to write or read or anything else like that. You just never know what might end up being useful. But yeah, I would say, depending on what you're looking for, the pulps just might surprise you. Have a good day, everybody.